Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. In this video, we're finally going to put the transmission together for the Budget Nova. Okay, if you remember, I took apart a Turbo 350, disassembled it, put a video up. I found a few problems with the case. Probably could be fixed, but one of the lugs was messed up on the center support, and then the accumulator piston bore was kind of scarred up from a broken spring. Had to remember what everything's called. And so I had another core that I bought for 50 bucks. So I decided to take that core apart and try to use that case. And let me tell you, that transmission was nasty. Now this thing had been sitting out in the dirt in the yard for a long time before I got it. I got it, it sat in my yard, I thought covered up pretty well. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. There's all kind of nastiness in here. Not to mention, was it also nasty on the inside. The transmission was smoked. Your direct drum, all the clutches in there were just burnt to pieces, and so was the pressure plate. Getting everything clean, I had to wash all the parts. I used mineral spirits, carb cleaner, Dawn dish detergent. I used a little bit of everything to try to get all these parts clean. That was the most challenging part, was keeping stuff clean. Once everything was cleaned, I had to assemble things like the valve body. Of course, all my parts got mixed up, so I had to keep looking online and looking at diagrams in a book to figure out where all the parts went, and of course get them back in the right order, and hopefully everything works. Okay, once I got everything clean, it was time to change all the bushings. So I used a punch or a chisel or whatever to drive all the bushings out, install the new ones, and I tried to get them at the same depth as the other bushings. Alright, I'm going to put my first bushing in here, and there is a feed hole down here, and I looked on my other pump, I looked on this one before to see where this needs to be in relation to that feed hole. So I'm going to get this down just below that feed hole like it was before. I'm going to start out with a larger bushing driver so I can get it square. Might even go a little bit bigger than that. So I can get it square, and then I'll go to one that just barely fits the ID, or the OD of that, so that it'll slide down in the stator housing like it needs to be. There we go. That'll work better. Okay, so the 30 was too big and it actually got stuck in the housing there. So I'm going to go back to the 29. And I'm using a small hammer so I don't cause any damage if I screw up too bad, or as much damage. Alright, now we're going to start on the second bushing that goes on top of that one. Okay, we got the transmission case completely cleaned, as clean as I'm going to get it, and I tried really hard to get in there. Got the bottom of this cleaned up, and this thing had a lot of water in it, a lot of trash and garbage in it, so it was very difficult to get clean. Now, I already changed the case bushing. I thought I was recording it, but I was just taking pictures with my GoPro. So, case bushing has been changed. The new one is in there, and yeah, so I used a driver like this to drive it out and then drive it back in, and you have to set it the correct depth because you have this bearing that rides in it, and these tangs have got to go down, so the bushing has got to be far enough in the case to where these tangs on this bearing do not contact the bushing and hold it up in the wrong spot. Okay, so now that we got all the bushings in, the first thing that goes in the case is the low reverse piston. Now I've got to put the O-rings on it, and these are square cut, they're not lip seals, so they ought to be easy to figure out in the kit. Alright, so I got my seals on. I'm going to put some trans gel on those, and then what I'm going to do is set this down in here. Now it's got a notch for a tang in the back, and there's a notch in the case at the very top right there. You can see that's where this thing is going to sit, because this does not spin, it moves up and down. Alright, so I got my piston lubed up, all the seals. Now I'm going to set this down in here with the knots pointing up, and it should just press right into place. Fairly easy. Alright, it takes a little bit to get it down, but it wasn't too bad. I think it's all the way down, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's all the way down. Okay, so next we're going to put all these springs in here. And I hope I've got all the springs from the right piston. I got some of my springs mixed up and had to go back through and figure out which ones went where. Okay, then my spring retainer plate goes on. And then I have to put that tool in here that's going to pretty much block any access I have of getting the snap ring in, so I can put the snap ring in. I think I can lay my snap ring in here first and make this a little easier. I'm not sure. And then this goes down and locks in the case. Tighten this down, and it compresses my retainer. Make sure my clip is still loose. Okay, I think I've got it down far enough. Now I got to try to get this snap ring on here. Okay, I was able to get that in there. It was quite a pain. It took me about 10 minutes, not terribly long. Took me longer to get it out than it did to put it back in. And now the pressure is off of that, so I can open this up. Alright, you're supposed to be able to test the low reverse piston by blowing air in a hole back here. So we're going to try that. Alright, that works. Okay, so now we can start some real assembly. I've got this sitting on my little junky wooden table, or wooden top table, and I cut a hole in it so that my output shaft can go through it. I've got my roller bearing here. I want to dip it in some transmission fluid. I'm going to set it down where it goes. And I've got my output shaft. And I dipped that roller bearing in some transmission fluid. There we go. That's better. Alright, so I had a problem getting the bushing straight in the case. So I had to pull this back out, square the bushing up, and that spins just fine. So, now my table's rubbing it, so it's a little bit hard to I thought it was harder to spin than it was, but my table is actually rubbing the shaft, the hole I put in the table, so that was part of the problem. Anyway, that's fine. Now we're going to start putting the rest together. Alright, so the next thing that goes in is my new 3-tab washer, or 3-tang washer. It goes down. I'm going to dip it in some trans fluid. Set it down in there. And then my output Planetary goes in next. I've got some transmission fluid. I dipped it in some transmission fluid. So it goes in next. It's got a new bushing in it also. There we go. Alright, so now it's time for my low reverse steels and frictions. I've had the frictions soaking in some trans fluid. There. First one's in. First friction's in. And the last friction. Now, one of the parts that your rebuild kit does not come with that you are supposed to replace is the low roller sprag or low roller clutch. And it goes in there like that, and there's a snap ring on both sides. I've got to find my other snap ring real quick. Alright, now to install this anti-clunk spring. I'm going to put a little trans gel on it to keep it in place. Okay, so I'm putting a lot of trans gel on it to keep it in place so it doesn't move around on me. And then the center support goes in after that. If I can get the spacing figured out right on that. I think I got it right in there just like it is. And it should click into place like that. And then I should be able to get my retaining ring in unless I've got not enough clearance in my clutch pack. Alright, now we're going to try to get this in, snap ring in where it's supposed to be. Okay, I got my snap ring in like it's supposed to be. Now I can put my low roller race or whatever it's called in. Alright. Okay, so I had to take my center support back out and flip my roller clutch over because I put it in wrong. So now I'm going to put my inner race in. Oh man, come on, seriously? What am I doing wrong? Okay, so the next thing that goes in is my sunshell washer. I finally got this stupid other race in, so that was a pain. Put a little trans fluid on my washer. It sits down here. And now my sunshell can go in. I'm going to dip the gear in a little bit of trans fluid and set it down in there. Spins good either way. Okay, next is my front Planetary. I'm going to dip it in some trans fluid. Set it down in here. There we go. Now to get that little snap ring on. Ooh, this is going to be aggravating. Okay, I got the snap ring on there. So let's see what's next. Okay, we got that clip in there. So now we're going to put another washer in. Another thrust washer. And I'm going to put the carrier on the front Planetary. Alright, that's all the way down. Now goes another washer. The next two pieces are the forward drum and the direct drum. This is the forward drum. Alright, putting my lip seals in my pit, and the lip goes towards the bottom of the drum. The lip seals face down, and it's hard to get the piston pushed in without the lip seals curling up. So I have to use a 10,000ths feeler gauge to push around the edge and keep the lip seals pointing down, one in the center and one on the edge. Once that's done, I can put the retainer springs in that return the piston back to normal after the pressure's off. Then I can stack my frictions and steels in, starting with a thick steel to get my clearance right. Okay, so I also had to use an extra thick steel on this one. It's got a wave plate that goes in first, and then it's got a thick steel that goes in, then my clutches, and then all the other steels. So we're going to put the wave plate in first, top of the piston, then my thick steel is going in, then my first friction, and then my pressure plate goes on top. And like I said, this one has a much thinner reveal than the one for the direct drum. But I checked my clearance and I've got it set right at 25 thousandths, which 20 to 40 is the factory spec supposedly, and a little bit tight is okay, but I got mine right at 25, so that's where we're going to leave it. This is the direct drum. Alright, I'm going to put my front seal in my pump. I'm going to put a little bit of RTV on here, and then it presses in. Alright, I'm going to put my pump gears in. Move that out of the way and start working on the stator half. Alright, now I'm going to do my lip seals for my intermediate piston. And I think I'm just going to use transmission fluid to lubricate these instead of the trans gel, the assembly gel. Maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. Crap. Alright, I'm not sure if I cut a seal there or not. Now with the piston installed, I can put all my springs on, the retaining plate. Then I can bolt my pump halves together. I got to get the bolt started first, pull it up kind of close. Then I've got a giant clamp that goes around the edge of the pump and holds the halves aligned so I can torque everything down. First I put my pump washer on the bottom, then I've got 3 sealing rings on the bottom section, and then 2 sealing rings at the very top that are smaller. Alright, it is time to install the 4-drum and input shaft, and the splines on the clutches here, I'll have to twist it to where they lock in to that. So I'm not sure if that's all the way. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it's all the way in there. Okay, next I've got a bearing that goes on here between this and the direct drum. Put some fluid on it, put it down in there. Now I can install the direct drum. Ouch, there's no easy way to do that. Try to get it to lock all the way down in there. Alright, I got it to seat all the way down in there. Alright, so the next thing to go in is the intermediate band. Alright. Alright, now I'm going to install my backing plate for my intermediate clutch. And that sits right there. Now I'm going to put a friction in. And a friction. And a steel. And a friction, and then end up with a steel plate, and then our wave plate. Okay, now we're going to try to put the pump down in here. Okay, so now I'm going to check my end play. Now, this is actually the second time. You saw me put the pump in. I checked the end play. I had 0. I couldn't get it to move. I took the pump back out. I took this shim out that I had on the back side of the pump washer. This is 23 thousandths, and I put it back in. Now I'm hoping that I've got some in play at all. Hopefully you need 10 to 40 or something like that. I'm hoping I at least get the 10 back, but I'm not sure. Alright, it's jumping up to above 10, so I think we're good there. Okay, got it on the bench. We're going to do the governor gear now. So the gear that came with this thing was worn a little bit, and this is another thing that does not come in a kit. So now I'm going to put the governor gear. Why is there not a hole in it? So apparently you push the new pin in and then you have to drill your own hole. So and now we're good to go. Alright, so we're going to slide this in here. Get it to engage all the way, I hope. Alright, put my new gasket on this. Okay, now to put new seals on my accumulator piston. Lubed it up with New Seal's transmission fluid. There we go. Spring goes in next. So now the cover goes on. And the retaining spring, if I can get it in there. There we go. Gonna pull all my pressure port plugs back in before I forget with some new thread sealer on. Now before I forget, I want to put my shaft seal in for my selector shaft. Okay, so now we're going to put this, put a little transmission fluid on this seal to lube it up. Now we're going to put our shaft through into our rooster comb. Okay, note to self. You have to have the bar installed before you do all that. Okay, now for my parking pole guide. Alright, now my intermediate band servo. Okay, now the shift kit. So this shift kit is a B&M shift kit that I bought from a swap meet for 20 bucks. And it didn't have the instructions in it, but it had all the parts except for the check ball. It did have the drill bit. So for stage 2, I looked at the instructions online. For stage 2, I drilled my 2 holes a little bit larger in these 2 holes like it showed. And then I've got 1 check ball I'm going to put in. And even though it's upside down and it probably won't fall out, I'm going to put a little grease on this check ball just to make sure. So I'm going to put that check ball right there. That's the only one that's supposed to stay in it. And then the rest of them you leave out. And we've got 2 other pieces that go in, and this is part of the dual feed modification. They go under this plate, which normally is by itself. So we're going to get all this put together in the right order. Okay, I've got the separator plate and gasket that comes with my shift kit. This gasket is supposed to be the one for the transmission side. So I'm going to set it up there like it's supposed to go. Get it lined up. And I'm going to hold it in place using a bolt real quick. Alright, so I got everything else ready. I'm going to take these 2 bolts out. And now my gasket for the bottom goes on there. And this gasket is different than the other ones, so you got to know which one's which. And then I've got my support plates, or whatever you want to call them. They go on, the silver one goes on first, then the gold one, and then the stock plate. Alright, so now we get to put the valve body back in. I got to figure out how this S-clip goes in place for the manual valve. And my pan is clean, but this is not the pan I'm going to keep on here. So I'm only going to put a few bolts in there, keep everything covered up. I ordered a new steel pan. I didn't order a chrome pan. So I just want a new pan because this one's kind of pitted up pretty bad from rust. And these down real quick to hold the bottom on. That didn't sound good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this tail housing on. I do not have the speedometer gears yet, so I'm gonna have to take this back off to put the speedometer gears on. I ordered the drive gear and the driven gear that I needed to put on here for the 342 gears are in the back of the car. So I'll have to do that at a later point. Okay, so now it's together. Now, this wasn't any fun. I mean, it was fun. I have a way better understanding of how an automatic transmission works now in detail, intimately, biblically. It was, I tell you, there's several things that if you're going to redo this, rebuild a transmission like this, you need to know. First, take it somewhere. Don't do it. But seriously, first off, I haven't seen a rebuild kit yet that comes with everything you need. There may be some out there, but your regular rebuild kit doesn't come with hardly anything that you're probably going to need. For example, your roller clutch for your intermediate, your roller clutch for your reverse low, both of those should be replaced, and they don't come in rebuild kits, not any that I saw. Also, rebuild kits don't come with all the bushings, and apparently Turbo 350s are supposed to be tough on bushings. However, the kit didn't come with all the bushings, so I ordered a bushing kit. It also doesn't come with all the washers that you need, the thrust washers, so I ordered a set of washers. There's a lot of things that either might need to be replaced or should be replaced that don't come in the kit. Now, one of the things that I struggled with on this was I got the second one apart after I took the first transmission apart. I got the second one apart, and my direct drum was scored up on the inside from the sealing rings on both transmissions. So the direct drum rides right on the stator support of the front pump assembly. There's cast iron sealing rings on it that go in here, and it goes to different ports depending on what gear you're in. Well, the sealing rings had rubbed and scarred up the inside of this direct drum and the other one that I had, so I had to order a new one of these, or a used one. But I found a used one, 60 bucks, I got it, and it was in good condition. The other problem I had was setting up clearance. Now, a transmission kit comes with steels if you buy the nicer kit. Some of them come with just frictions, but they come with steels. Well, they come with one size steels. All the steels that came in this kit were, I think, 69 thousandths. Well, when I set up my direct drum clearance, when I set all that up, checked all my clearance, I had way too much clearance. I had about 70 thousandths clearance, and I wanted around 50. Well, I had to order another set of steels, so I had some 90 thousandth steels I had ordered. They came in. I put one 90 thousandth steel in on top of the piston. Everything else, that was my 20 thousandths difference I needed, and everything was good there. Now, also the front forward drum, the forward drum assembly has the same clutches and steels as the direct drum. So I also had to use a thick steel in there, one of them, to make up the clearance and get that where I wanted it to be. Now, your intermediate clearance, I think I got it where it's just not supposed to be more than 100 thousandths or so, and I think I got about 85 thousandths. So it's a little bit sloppy, but I'm not too worried about it. It's mostly stock transmission. Of course, then you have all the differences in transmissions. Around 1979 or 80 or so, they changed to a pump that had a thrust bearing on it instead of a washer, and those aren't interchangeable. If your pumps wore out, I had to order pump gears. That didn't come in a kit, and you almost always need those if the transmission's got any miles on it. So I had to order pump gears, and there's more than one size, so I had to measure the ones that I had, find the right ones, order them, wait on that. And as you start putting stuff together, first you take everything apart, you find out what's bad immediately, and then when you start putting back together, you have to order more parts, and then when you figure out you didn't have something you needed, you have to order more stuff. So I had quite a few orders to try to get parts for this transmission. We finally got it together. Now, will it work? Who knows? I've got another pan on the way, a regular steel pan and a gasket. This one, it cleaned up okay, but it has some pitting and stuff on the inside. I got all the rust out of it, and it's clean, but I didn't want to use it, so I've just got a few bolts in there holding it on. Also, my lever for the shaft here, the lever's kind of wallered out a little bit, so I hope it's the lever, not the shaft. I've got another one around here somewhere. I'll find that, put that on there. Pretty happy with everything the way it turned out. This was, when I took this one apart, it was a long tail shaft. I used the output shaft of the first transmission I took apart that looked like it was in good shape, and I put that in here along with my tail cover. So I think everything's going to be okay on this transmission. I'm not too worried about anything. All my clearances worked okay. My end play was a little tight, but I hope it's going to be okay. And you know what? It's going to be a fairly stock transmission. I did put a B&M shift kit in it, so maybe it'll shift a little harder than normal, but you know, maybe that'll help a little bit. Hopefully this thing will run good and I won't have to take everything back out once I get it running and trying to move. And hopefully I don't tear up anything with, if I did do anything wrong, hopefully it's not something nasty and I have to replace a big part or something like that, like a torque converter or a pump or something like that. I hope not. Anyway, we're going to get the front end done, get the motor and transmission in this car, get this thing on the road real soon. You guys check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time.